Hello. In this video, I would like to introduce the Tecno Pova 5 Pro review. I trust that this video is very useful for you. I am introducing to you the detailed Tecno Pova 5 Pro review that is important, especially competition, verdict, pros and cons at the end of the video. Please kindly enjoy watching the video as following. Tecno is slowly making a name for itself in the smartphone world and is expanding to different markets across the globe. The Pova series is the budget selection of Tecnos limited to a few markets, with India being one of them. This year's Pova 5 series is more about gaming, and the Pova 5 Pro is more so. The handset runs a Dimensity 6080 chipset paired with 8 GB of RAM, a fairly potent setup for its class. The body styling hints at the Pova 5 Pro's gaming heritage with its LED illuminated mecha design. It definitely stands out from the crowd in the sub-INR 15,000 segment. Design and ergonomics. Due to the industrial-inspired mecha design language, the Pova 5 Pro reminds us of the Infinix GT10 Pro. However, the Pova 5 Pro has a more impressive light show. The back of the device has RGB LED lighting in the shape of 3 lines crossing. The rest of the ornaments on the back fit the overall style as they pop like 3D objects under the glass. But only the camera island actually protrudes. The camera bulge isn't as prominent, though, but the camera rings are maybe a bit excessive, given the tiny sensors they house. We like the design overall. It's fresh and targets a specific audience. We have the Dark Illusion and Silver Fantasy versions, but there's also the Free Fire edition available, which comes with special themes for the UI. Of course, the whole build is made of plastic, but surprisingly, it's a bit hefty, sitting at 212 grams. Interestingly, it doesn't feel hefty in hand and it's reasonably thin at 8.1 millimeters. Speaking of inches, the front isn't anything out of the ordinary. Aside from the thick chin, the rest of the bezels are thin enough, while the punch hole is centered and a bit bigger due to the LCD panel. OLEDs allow for a more precise cutout. The side is flat with a glossy finish that attracts a lot of fingerprints. The left side is reserved for the SIM card tray, which holds a dedicated microSD card slot as well, while the right holds the volume rocker and the power button. The latter lies too flat for our taste as it's easy to miss it when reaching for it. It's also a bit too high up the frame, so you need to stretch your thumb a bit. The top and bottom hold the loudspeaker grills, and the latter is also home to the USB-C connector and the 3.5mm audio jack. One cool feature about the USB connector is that it has moisture detection, so the handset will warn you if it's wet and immediately unplug the charging cable to avoid damage. Overall, the design is nice but may also be too much for some users. Keep in mind that it's a big device with a 6.67-inch screen, so the sharp edges and the flat frame aren't contributing to a comfortable grip. However, the flat edges are desirable when gaming, which is supposed to be the main purpose of the handset. 120Hz LCD panel on a budget. Even though the Pova 5 Pro is a lower mid-range device, it offers an impressive display for its class. The device is built around a 6.78-inch IPS LCD panel with a 120Hz refresh rate. Resolution is pretty standard, 1080x2460px, and there are no HDR certifications, not that we expected any. They are not standard in this price range. Tecno advertises 580 nits of peak brightness, and we managed to measure up to 509 nits, which is pretty close to the advertised peak brightness. There's no brightness boost, so those nits would have to do. And in our experience, outdoor usage is somewhat uncomfortable on a bright sunny day. HRR control. Leaving the refresh rate in automatic switch mode would probably save you some battery, as the display would default to 60 Hz when not in use and when watching videos. The software tends to go for 120 Hz in most scenarios, but we found that Google Chrome, among other Google apps, for example, is limited to 60 Hz. Forcing the apps with the 120 Hz mode helps, but you lose the auto switch to 60 Hz. Battery life. The device runs on a 5000 mAh battery, and one would expect that when coupled with the energy-efficient Dimensity 6080 SoC, battery life will be nothing short of great. However, the overall score is somewhat disappointing. The screen-on runtimes are also not great. Web browsing is fine, but the video playback is quite shorter than on a device with an OLED screen. There are barely any phones in this price bracket scoring under 100 hours of endurance rating. Charging speed. Charging is where the Pova 5 Pro shines. The device is unmatched in its class when it comes to charging speed. The 5000 mAh battery can take up to 68 W with the provided proprietary charger and cable. The smartphone blows everyone out of the water and posts impressive charging times. In just 30 minutes, you get 70% of the charge back. Only a few competitors get close to that. A full charge takes only 50 minutes. Speakers. The Pova 5 Pro runs a pair of stereo speakers, but it's a hybrid setup, meaning the left channel, usually the top speaker, doubles as an earpiece as well. A small grill on the top side of the frame lets the sound come out freely. Loudness-wise, the speakers are very good, scoring -25.6 LUFS. We also noticed that the right channel, the bottom speaker, is noticeably louder than the other one. And the setup leaves more to be desired when it comes to quality. They sound a bit flat and distorted at higher volume with virtually no bass. Notably, this is a budget speaker setup, so it's expected. A 50 MP camera aided by a depth sensor. The Pova 5 Pro offers a no-nonsense camera setup, for the most part, that is. The primary 50 MP f/1.6 camera is aided by a 0.8 MP depth sensor, and that's pretty much it. We are surprised to see such big aperture, though. Unfortunately, we weren't able to identify the sensor, so we will just go with megapixel count here as the main spec. The selfie on the front uses a 16 MP f/2.0 camera with 1.0 M pixels. Even though most competitors offer some sort of usable auxiliary camera, such as 8 MP ultra-wide or 2 MP macro shooters, they don't appear to contribute to the overall camera experience that much. So we can't be mad at Tecno for not including them. The 50 MP main camera here seems more than adequate on paper. iOS 13 coupled with Android 13. The Tecno Pova 5 Pro runs on the latest available Android 13 and the most recent version of Tecno's proprietary iOS 13 Android overlay. If you are familiar with the older iOS versions, this one won't look too different, and you will feel right at home. In fact, there are little to no changes compared to the older iOS 12. Tecno has been running and refining its own skin for some time now, which we've generally found to be quite good in the past, with a few on and off caveats here and there. These mostly come down to pre-installed bloat and ads, but the experience on the Pova 5 Pro is actually pretty clean, as the bloat and the ads are noticeably reduced. That's not to say there aren't many pre-installed apps and utilities. Tecno is still sticking to its traditions of developing and deploying its own set of apps to cover the basic features. You get an in-house gallery and video player and an app store, even two, depending on how you count them. These can still get annoying at times, but we can understand the angle Tecno is coming from. Getting into the Pova 5 Pro is business as usual, with both fingerprint and face recognition available. You can choose to either unlock upon touch of the power button or a full-on press. The latter option is advisable if you don't want to have frequent misreadings with your phone in your pocket, for example, because the software will always be looking for a fingertip. sustained and gaming performance. Somehow, Tecno was able to cram up a vapor chamber into the tight budget. The company advertises a 820mm 2 vapor chamber coupled with a huge 159mm 2 graphene-based heat sink. But it looks like it paid off. The Pova 5 Pro fared great in our CPU torture test and maintained above 90% of the CPU's clock speeds. The device didn't get warm either, so it felt pleasant in hand. Even after 1 hour of continuous load, the CPU dropped only to 89% of its theoretical performance. To be fair, the Dimensity 6080 isn't very demanding to begin with, as it offers just 2 Cortex-A76 cores. Still, believe the applied cooling solution does make a difference. We also tried playing Mobile Legend, Bang Bang and Free Fire, which are advertised to maintain 80 and 90 frames per second. However, we could not force the display above 60 Hz, so you won't be able to take full advantage of the fast display during gaming. Competition. Although the competition in this price segment in India is pretty packed, the Tecno Pova 5 Pro stands out not only with design but with decent performance, fast charging, good camera experience and highly customizable and feature-rich HIOS. It's not the most popular Android overlay out there, but we are surprised by its responsiveness and functionality. The first 2 competitors that come to mind are the popular Xiaomi Redmi Note 12 4G and 5G. The former is slightly more affordable than the Pova 5 Pro, while the latter starts at 17,000 Indian rupees, about 2,000 Indian rupees above the target price. Both devices offer superior display quality as they rock OLED panels at 120 Hz instead of LCDs and have longer battery endurance. The Pova 5 Pro surprises with an arguably better camera, faster charging and a marginally faster chipset. Depends on the scenario, though. Alternatively, Samsung has a couple of phones in the same price bracket, the Galaxy A14 5G and the Galaxy M14. Both are very similar phones with little to no difference. The A14 5G usually comes with Dimensity 700 for most markets but can also be found with an Exynos 1330, just like the M14. The latter also has faster wired charging. However, neither Galaxy offers better value than the Tecno. The Dimensity 6080 is noticeably faster, the charging speed on the Pova 5 Pro is far superior, and the base storage is 128 GB instead of 64 GB. The only real advantage of the Samsung Duo is their battery endurance. Lastly, we have the recently released Realme 11X, which comes with a similar chipset, Dimensity 6100 Plus, and almost identical display. It's too early to comment on the camera performance, but the Pova 5 Pro has the more recent camera sensor, as the 64MP variety is pretty dated. And interestingly enough, Tecno's offering is faster at charging, too, and that used to be Realme's territory up until recently. Verdict. All in all, the Tecno Pova 5 Pro is a solid mid-ranger, with the only glaring drawback being battery life. Pretty much all competitors out there have better endurance, but no one can beat the Pova 5 Pro when it comes to charging. We hope that will be enough to persuade you because the Pova 5 Pro is an easy recommendation. There are only a couple of rivals running better displays, too. Moreover, the Pova 5 Pro has exceptional sustained performance, dependable performance, great camera experience all around, even supports 2K video recording, which is a rare find in this class, unorthodox design and feature-rich software. We understand how big brand names sound more enticing, but the Pova 5 Pro seems like a great proposition for anyone in India looking for a smartphone in the sub-INR 15,000 segment, regardless of whether gaming is a priority or not. Pros: unorthodox design with RGB LED strip on the back. Unrivaled fast charging. Good price/performance ratio, excellent sustained performance. Great camera experience day and night. Feature-rich iOS on top of Android 13. 3.5mm jack, dedicated microSD slot, 128GB base storage. Generous retail package. Cons. Battery life could be better. You can find phones with OLEDs for the same price. No 120Hz gaming, even in optimized games. Thank you for watching. See you next videos.